Hello and welcome to another Final Word Daily ITSE World T20 World Cup. I'm Daniel Norcross and I am joined, I am more than delighted to say, by Isabel Westbury. Yes, we've taken over the asylum again. The Poms are in the building. Isabel Westbury, delightful to see you. You're in a cupboard and I'm at BBC Towers in Salford.
I'm not Harry Potter, you know. I don't live... My bedroom is not a cupboard under the stairs. This is actually my bedroom.
But it's quite eavesy. Are you sure it's not under the stairs?
Well, I quite like it, but fine, rude.
Now then, we had two super smashing matches today, which decided the qualification process for Group 1, I should say. We know at least one side of the draw now, because Australia were playing against the West Indies, England were playing against South Africa, and I think we're going to kick off with the Australia game, the Australia against West Indies game, and I'm going to attempt to summarise that in 30 seconds starting now. West Indies needed to win this game in order to finish in the top 8 and therefore qualify in the top 8 for next year's T20, and at no point did they really look like that was in any way important to them. It was all about Chris Gayle larking about and Gayle and Bravo having fun and lots of people giggling with the crowd. In between times, they posted a rather subpar 157 and Australia knocked it off incredibly easily in 16.2 overs thanks to a fabulous partnership between David Warner and Mitchell Marsh, which ended when Marsh was caught off Chris Gayle's last ever delivery in international cricket. That was about the most important thing that happened in it, apart from Australia, spoiler alert, have qualified for the semi-finals somehow. There you go, that's my summary.
I have a caveat, because do we know whether Chris Gayle's actually retiring? Because he hasn't announced anything, has he? Gayle and Bravo's pretty much announced it. But, I mean, the approach to the game, the way in which he played, I think he brought out his kit bag as well, and was giving out sort of extra gloves to the crowd. It felt like it, but then I don't think anything's been said for certain. I mean, it would be Chris Gayle not to actually retire now.
It was moderately irritating as well, because I was doing updates for 5 Live, the BBC station, and it was only when Chris Gayle walked off and suddenly you saw a guard of honour and all of the players waiting for him that you then sort of buzz the studio and go, I think Chris Gayle might just have retired from international cricket. Because that was the story. You're right, there's been no actual confirmation of it, has there? But
I can just imagine him rocking up, you know, I don't know, the next T20 World Cup and go, I was only kidding, guys.
Gee, I mean, I wonder if he's retiring from all cricket. I mean, if you're giving away the kit, it's not just West Indies kit, is it? He's giving away gloves, he's giving away bats, he was giving away the lot. Although,
to be fair, I don't think he has a dearth of kit, so, yeah.
No, I suppose he's not short of a bat or two. But on to the game itself. The West Indies just continued to be extremely disappointing, didn't they? Their team exists almost entirely in the imagination and on paper. This wonderful glut of hitters like Pooran and Evan Lewis and Hetmeyer and Pollard and Russell. And the reality is they scored a little under 8 and over on a pitch where Australia, who we've been saying are a bit underpowered, got the best part of 10 and over.
To be honest, it just looked as though they rocked up for some kind of after party or a charity game. And in a way, I mean, I can't believe I'm saying this, but kudos to Australia for not getting kind of dragged into that as well, because it's very easy if you've got a kind of lacklustre team just to kind of play along with it. Whereas Australia, obviously, they needed to win and win well to secure qualification into the knockout stages. But it just felt... Yeah, I felt as though they were already at the after party of what is obviously going to be a cracking party tonight, but they were already there. But no one seemed to mind. It was weird. It didn't feel like a World Cup game. I think that's probably fair.
I actually didn't like it very much. I thought it was. I mean, I'm somebody who quite likes frivolity and nuttiness, and to think and to remind ourselves that sport isn't the most important thing in the world, but. It just seemed to me like nobody was really concentrating. It was like there was a game of cricket taking place, but the camera kept going to Chris Gayle, and he had his back to the actual action, and he was just chatting away to people in the crowd and tossing the odd pair of gloves in the air. And then when he got Mitchell Marsh out, he leapt on his back and gave him a big hug. I mean, you might say it's all lovely and all spirit of cricket, but I just found it a bit. Rubbish, really.
I mean, although buying into the Chris Gayle theatrics, it was. Very sort of on brand for him to get possibly with his last ball ever of either international cricket or cricket full stop a wicket was just kind of felt as though it was one of those scripts that could only have been written for #UniverseBoss. But it also, the other issue, I think, just from a wider perspective, is that it kind of gave Australia batting practice. David Warner looks sublime. I think the commentators, I can't remember who it was, but certainly there was concern not only for the rest of the tournament, but obviously for the Ashes as well. So, yeah, it kind of all fell in Australia's favour, which for anybody other than Australia is not great.
Well, indeed. When you think about how not so long ago there was going to have to be a report, there was going to have to be a post-mortem about Australian cricket. Do you remember? I think Steve Waugh said not so long ago, by which I mean less than a week ago, they're going to have to look into this because obviously Australia are miles behind England in white ball cricket. Well, they've qualified for the semi-final having won 4 out of 5 games. It doesn't look too bad to me, and they did it in convincing fashion today. They've clearly got so much more firepower. If you look at how wickets have tumbled in this T20 in ways perhaps we didn't anticipate, but when we're coming to do the post-mortem about the West Indies, which is the one we probably should do we not think they were just massively underpowered? You had this great contrast today, I thought, between a side that was relying on the likes of Hayden Walsh and Dwayne Bravo and Andre Russell to pick up wickets, and then Australia come in with these brutes, Hazelwood, Cummins, Starr, Zampa. It was a massive mismatch with the ball, wasn't it?
Oh, it was, but I mean, it does just feel like this was an end of an era, and hence why West Indies perhaps could just get away with their approach to that match. You know, it was 2 probably big guns bowing out in Gayle, in Bravo, and then also you feel that it's past the peak of the likes of Pollard, the likes of Russell. Holder wasn't even in the main squad as well, remember, and he's featuring here as well. So you kind of feel, draw a line, move on. Yes, the champions have been knocked out. Yes, they've been underwhelming with the bat and ball, to be honest. Didn't really have how many bowlers did they bowl? 7 bowlers they went through, including that one over from Gayle. That the intent wasn't there. The World Cup wasn't really there for them, and maybe they just needed that to move on.
Are we now thinking in terms of legacy? Is this where our conversation is now going, that this West Indies team has got a legacy? I mean, I've seen a few people say very earnest things on Twitter, because Twitter is a place for either being earnest or ridiculously frivolous.
Twitter actually today about West Indies,
wasn't it? Let us not forget what they have done for us.
Is it like some people we will remember for lighting up the game, but others have transformed it, and this West Indies side have changed the face of cricket. And I mean,
if it weren't for them, we'd have to watch Test cricket or something awful like that. But quite genuinely, I think they have been a very good team. Without being a really tedious, sanctimonious ninny, I do think actually they've been a very good team. And do we think now that this is a team that's going to have to be completely re-engineered, or is it one that's just requires, they're going to lose a couple of players, Gayle and Bravo, we know that. Is it evolution, not revolution, they need?
Oh, I think it'll just naturally fall away. I mean, those big names and guns that, again, almost to the sort of the old school T20 of the lots of dots but huge boundaries will fall away. I think that they've got a good crop coming through with the CPL. Obviously, has done wonders as well for generating that new talent. And I think it will just be a natural evolution. I'm not too worried about West Indies white ball cricket. I'm worried about other parts of West Indies cricket, but I think white ball is fine.
And Australia, as I said, they've won 4 out of 5. This was supposed to be the group of death. Do you remember? It was a group of death.
Wait, I thought the England one was a group of death. Or are they both just deathly groups?
That's the England one is the group of death.
Oh, right, the England one, obviously.
Yes. The one game they've lost was against England when they lost the toss. If you remember back in the old days of about 5 days ago, you could only win a match if you batted second. Now people seem to win matches batting first quite a bit. But they lost one match against England when they were sort of Joss Butlered, as well as showing a pretty terrible lack of intent, as Shane Watson kept on saying. But really, in the rest of these games, they've just been getting better and better. Are they, in the time-worn cliche, Isabel, are they peaking at the right time?
Oh, well, Australia, they do tend to do that. And also the other thing, they've come through kind of injury-free. Adam Zampa's really impressed this tournament. He's kind of come to the fore. He 1 for 20 from his 4. And then you've just got that trio of fast bowlers who picked up 6 wickets between them. And it's just that pit at the bottom of your stomach, because you know, as an English fan, that Australia had this habit of doing this just at the right time, just as England have capitulated and they've lost, probably 2 people to injury now, so I'll talk about that later. Australia seem to be just timing it.
Well, England have only themselves to blame, because they could have knocked Australia out. We'll come to that scenario shortly. But on the other side, they also did everything they could do to keep Ashton Agar in the team. When they played against England, his pretty much 4 overs went for 17, and they marmalised Zampa, but instead they've kept Zampa, they've ditched Agar, they've brought back Mitchell Marsh. We've tried to pull the wool over their eyes, but they're a bit too canny, these Aussies. Now, I'm going to give you my super shill smashing great world moment of the match. And despite all the things that I said in a rather curmudgeonly fashion about thinking that the game was descending into a farce, the wicket that Gayle did get, the utter pointlessness of that wicket. Australia had won. There were 4 overs left. Well, actually 4.1 overs left, and I think they needed 1 run, didn't they, at the time? And Mitchell Marsh batted really well, and he just slaps this pretty dull ball straight to mid-off, and it sends everybody mad. And I think that's what cricket can do. It can do something utterly mundane that, in the wider context and in the wider meaning of the match itself and everything else, there was nothing on it, but we all loved every minute of it. So for me, it's that Chris Gayle moment.
Sport is entertainment. Should we also just mention, I feel quite bad mentioning this, but there was a really odd moment as well where Gayle looked as though he was hunting for something in David Warner's pocket, i.e. sandpaper.
Ooh. Oh, was he
doing that? Did you see that? It was quite weird. No, I didn't see that, no. And a bit kind of, I think only Gayle might be the only person in the world that could do that and get away with it. As in, he's bigger than Warner. But, I mean, it all seemed to be quite good-natured, but it was quite odd.
That is odd. That is odd. I mean, I think the legacy for Chris Gayle, for me, though, is going to be one of the most amusing observations I've ever heard in my life, which Simon Mann, on commentary for the BBC today, was ruminating out loud. He was kind of thinking out loud about the fact that he's universe boss, and he said, I mean, if you took that role seriously, it would be a very tough one, wouldn't it?
Very Simon Mann.
Very Simon Mann. But also, I think of all the people who would ever take the universe boss role seriously, Chris Gayle might not be that. Jacinda Ardern, on the other hand, you never know. Right, it seems like a perfect time for us to have a little break away from the cricket and to remind you of our fabulous friends at woodstockcricket.co.uk. They that make the finest bats, the finest gear. Their bats have won not just first prize but second prize in the Good Gear Guide or the Best Gear Guide or the Wisdom Cricket Monthly have done. I've felt those bats. I've fondled those bats. I've not yet slept with one of those bats, but that's because one isn't actually in my possession. But the moment I get it, my wife is going to have to move just a little bit further, even further away from me in the bed to accommodate these absolute beauties. They smell great, they're smooth, and they improve your average enormously, as I know from having spoken to some people who have used them. Isabel, is it time for you to get a new bat?
I was going to settle with just if there was a universe bat, this would be it.
Oh, I like it. I like that a lot. Right, we need to move swiftly on because you've heard the spoiler alert. Australia are through to the semi-finals, but how did they get there? Well, the situation was all dependent on England's match against South Africa. South Africa went into that game knowing that they needed to win and to win big. Isabel, in 30 seconds, would you like to describe the game?
England spinners got wickets, but the absence of Tamal Mills through injury exposed their support seamers as Rassie van der Dussen smashed an unbeaten 94 from 60. First partnered by de Kock and then Aidan Markram, who chipped him with his own unbeaten half-century from just 25 balls. 189 on the board, and the wider equation was England needed 87 to qualify, while South Africa needed to bowl them out for under 131. Roy and Butler got England off to a flyer before Roy retired with a problematic hamstring, a concern. England's batters came, launched ball after ball into the stratosphere, but then went too soon. They needed 14 from the last over. England lost 3 in the first 3 balls. Rabada had a hat-trick and his team had the game, but England are through. South Africa are out. Victory was sweet, but not sweet enough, and South Africa once more crash out from a World Cup. Alas.
Alas, indeed. I think it would have been a terrific game if that had been the first game of the tournament. But because we were all so everybody was so talking about the game within a game, the numbers within the numbers, that actually it sort of ceased to be an interesting contest once England got firstly to 87, because it guaranteed that they got through, and because they got there so quickly, when they needed to get to 132 to knock South Africa out. As a supporter, as a watcher, I sort of lost interest in the result of the game. Did you?
Well, and also because suddenly everything that was being discussed was kind of England going forward. How are they going to replace Mills? Because Wood, love him as we do, he got smashed around the park. He didn't quite get him. He hasn't played for a little while because England had been playing so well. But he 47 from his 4 overs, so he was going at around about 12 per over. No one. We had the spinners, both Mo and Ali and Adewale got those 2 wickets, but nobody could really support them. So there's concern in that department. And then of course Jason Roy and Buttler, who looked sublime opening the batting together. They put on 38 in the first. I can't remember what it was when he got out, but 38 and not in quick time. Before.
Yeah, well, they were on 50 off 5 overs, weren't they? So yeah,
and then
38 when Roy hobbled off with what
that
looks
Roy
like
hamstring.
a tournament. I mean, that tournament's over.
He was on crutches at the end of
back.
the game, and he was swearing and sort of crying actually when he got injured. So that you feel as though you've got these 2 quite big holes now for England with Roy gone and Tamar Mills, and so that was kind of where we were all thinking. I mean, it was good that England managed to give their middle lower order a bit of a hit out, but as I said, I think they came in and smashed it, but no one really stuck around. The highest score for England was 37, and there were just many of those similar innings. It was fun to watch. There was huge sixes.
Well, Livingston hit the sixth of the tournament, didn't he? There were 112 metres. He went past Andre Russell's effort. I think it was Andre Russell. He's 111 metres.
Yeah, I thought Moeen Ali was going to get the biggest sixth of the tournament with one of his that went for 100 and something, 102 metres, I think.
One thing you would say is that England won't be playing at Sharjah again. The last 2 matches that they'll play will be at either Dubai and Abu Dhabi, in all probability. So that will bring Livingston back into the fray. It felt like Morgan didn't want to bowl Livingston because the dimensions at Sharjah are a bit small, but you're right, there's a serious hole if you take Mills out of that bowling lineup, and there's a distinct problem at the top of the order. What do you think they'll do? Will Bairstow rejoin with Buttler at the top of the order? Is that what they'll go with?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Vince is being talked about as coming in as a like replacement right at the top of the order. I mean, the one thing to be said, though, for England is that they kind of needed a bit of a hiccup. Everyone needs a hiccup right before you go into the knockout stages. You don't want that hiccup in the next game because that's it. That's England's tournament. So, maybe this was the wake-up call that they need to make sure that they career through to the final. Indeed. Which is, yeah.
We've not got long left, so let's quickly cast our eye over South Africa. They've won 4 games. Like Australia and England. In the group of death, these 3 teams won 4 games. They should all be pleased with themselves. They've gone out on net run rate. Why didn't they go harder against Bangladesh? They needed 80-odd. They chased it down to 13.5 overs. What are they thinking of, Isabel?
Well, this is exactly as you said. If this is the first game of the tournament, you'd think, right, South Africa are starting off here. But you've got to feel sorry for them, but also misjudged as well in terms of their kind of, knowing that they're going to come against England in the last match. Whereas Australia are a team that always peak in World Cups and get it just right. South Africa, again, I mean, plus ça change. This is the legacy of South Africa and Cricket World Cups, and I feel for them. I really do, because I would actually love to see South Africa win a World Cup, because the team that they've got, they should be doing so much better.
Oh, imagine the look on their little faces. They wouldn't know what to do with their joy and their glee, would they? But we saw Rassie van der Dussen. Rassie van der Dussen may look like a former actor and human, just about, Lawrence Fox, but he's certainly considerably more beautiful batsman than Lawrence Fox is a politician. It was a fair joy to watch him in this tournament. We got one more round of group matches in Group 2 to be completed. Tomorrow it's all about Afghanistan playing against New Zealand. That is the big game. If New Zealand win that, you don't need to worry about anything else. They go through to the semi-finals and they will play England, and Pakistan will play Australia. But if Afghanistan win, it's going to be tricky because then it'll come down to India against Namibia, and you'd imagine Afghanistan would have to beat New Zealand massively in order to prevent India from getting through. I don't think it's me who's going to be running the rule over that. Are you back tomorrow, or is it the boys? Are the boys back?
I think the boys are back. The boys are back in town. So there we go.
Well, in that case, I think we should say goodbye because I've got a home to go to. It's been a very, very long day, and you've got a lovely event. Isabel, it's been a joy having you.
Adios.
And thank you all for watching and listening. Goodbye.
Bye.